Greetings and welcome to Legacies of Wavryn, Lore of the Endelment. This will be chapter 30 of this reading. What faded in from the light was another large dragon that looked just like Zaec, but it had white scales that had a light shine of baby blue on them when it moved. It also had bright white eyes that had baby blue pupils and baby blue colored claws and horns, none stained by anything. Just as the dragon appeared, it stopped and bowed its head. Then it moved to lay down in front of me while crossing its front left leg over its right and said, "Come closer, young one." I walked closer as I changed back into my normal form with my clothes still bright white. I came to stand about 15 feet from the dragon, then sat with my legs crossed. In that moment, Light barked, "Introduce yourself to His Holiness, you bastard!" The dragon chuckled, then said, "Calm yourself, my student. There is no need for anyone, except I, to introduce ourselves." Now crap. He can read thoughts too. "Sorry, Master Wardrick." I looked to the dragon before me and asked, "So what are you doing here, Wardrick?" "Oh, Creator, please no." Wardrick was powerful, nearly greater than all the other gods. However, in the event that his brother, Zaec, was cast away, Wardrick too was banished to his home, never to leave its confines. As was Zaec, Wardrick was a great mentor to his students in teaching the power of bliss to them. He even taught them some of the greatest techniques before they were ready to become masters themselves. However, out of all his students, Light was not his most prized. In fact, Light wasn't even a student of his. She was one of Zaec's students, but didn't last. Even though she was trying so hard to follow along with her brother, Light just couldn't compete at her brother's level. It was just too dark and gruesome for her taste. But she didn't give up. Light knew that she could still match her brother, even if it would take time. In a way, she looked up to him. After Light found out that Shadow was cheating in his lessons, she tried her best to convince Zaec that her brother was defying his teachings. But Zaec didn't heed her warnings. So, in fear that her brother may do something drastic, Light forgot her teachings from Zaec and went to Wardrick to ask if there was a way to stop Shadow with the powers of bliss. Of course, as any other teacher, Wardrick didn't like teaching students late in his lessons and that weren't familiar with his own. However, he granted her the ability to train under him so that she could find a way to stop her brother. Around the time that Shadow was getting ready to fight his master, Light was trying her hardest to learn about bliss and was trying to find a way to lock her brother away until she could find something to calm him down. As Light found what could stop Shadow, she was told by another that her brother was fighting Zaec out in the fields for dominance. Light quickly learned how to use her new technique and ran to try to stop Shadow, but she was too late. Once she was out in the field, she saw her brother imprison Zaec. She tried to incarcerate her brother in her master's home to keep him from being able to use any of his powers. Yet just as she channeled her powers to capture her brother, Wardrick, in anger and in blind rage from the loss of his own brother, charged Shadow with all his might. Unfortunately, and accidentally, Wardrick was instead taken and sealed in his own home as well by one of his own students. Even though the incarceration didn't work in Light's favor, there was no need to try and use it on Shadow after examining him. He had been beaten badly by his master and was forced to stay put until his wounds had healed, taking over a century. And even though Shadow was an evil creature that needed to be locked away, he was still Light's brother. So she did everything she could to help him recover, while she trained her hardest to exceed her brother with the powers of bliss that she had learned. After Wardrick had told me his tale, Light said, I'm so sorry, Master. I knew I should have done something different to stop him. Do not worry, my student. As long as you can overpower your brother, you have nothing to feel sorry about. With that, Wardrick stood up and said, Before you leave Endelment, you must learn how to use the powers of bliss. For I predict that you will face a horrid creature that wishes nothing more than to destroy you, and only bliss can give you the hope you need to stop it. Wardrick made his white aura flare up around him. Then he raised his head to look down at me and said, I shall grant you my soul, so you may use and control all that I know. The dragon's body changed into a small sphere of energy, just like Light's soul. Then it flew over and fused itself into me. Now in my head, the second dragon said, Now then, concentrate your soul and emotions. Use them to control bliss into something far more fearsome, yet calm and pure with all of nature. How do I do that? I asked. How dare you question Lord Wardrick, like Bart. If I still had my body, I would have smacked you one. Calm yourself, my student. Let his lordship concentrate. Sorry, Master. It took me about an hour, but I had mastered the bliss form and all of its abilities. However, in order for me to change into it, I must be very calm and pure of all thoughts. Which I thought was complete bullcrap. Like I need to be nice to anyone and anything around me in any way. I found that my bliss body was just simply my normal form. My eyes changed like they did in the abyss form, with bright white around the blood red pupil. My claws were also white, but somehow my wings were pitch black. I never knew why. Oddly enough, my teeth stayed the same, as did my tone of voice, yet I just spoke calmly. Last were my clothes, which changed to shine white in this new form, along with my hair. Feeling I was done with my training, I adjusted my glasses and said, I'm done here. I'm going back now. The doors gently shut behind me as my wings folded in, while I just calmly and silently walked out of the grotto. Outside, I saw Nanye by herself, still sitting down with her back turned to the entrance. When I neared the Abeki, I changed out of my bliss form. Then she stood up and bluntly said, Let's go. I don't want to be here anymore. 5 minutes of silence came between Nanye and I through our travel to the east side mountains, with the Abeki trying to keep her distance from me by walking about 5 steps ahead. I tried to walk closer to her, but every time I did, she'd just walk faster to stay ahead of me. Even when I would come to a complete stop, she would stand just 5 feet from me and wait for me to continue. She even continued to keep her back turned to me, while putting her paws on her hips, as if acting impatient. After the 3rd time I tried to get the Abeki's attention by stopping, I asked, What's up with you, Nanya? Keep walking, she barked. You've got one last thing to do before you leave. Now quit wasting my time. I jolted over to the Abeki and grabbed her upper right arm with my left hand, while in anger I asked, What's with you? Why are you so pissed off of me? She quickly turned and looked up at me, angry as well, and replied, Mind your own damn business, Kexon. Now let go of me or I will kick your ass. I gave a mean glare at the Abeki as I clenched my right hand into a tight fist, then sprung out a piercer that was dark gray with blood red just along its edges from the top of my right wrist. I gripped Nanye's arm harder and barely lifted my right arm as a means to signal a threat and said, Bring it, mutt. With my actions, I knew I had struck great fear deep into Nanye's soul. She looked at me scared as her ears bent down and back, while she bent her tail in between her legs and said, You wouldn't really hurt me now, would you? I just moaned at her and squinted my eyes slightly, giving no reply as she continued, Come on now, Ray. Nanya looked to her left side with a saddened expression and said, "Oh, forget it." She then looked back up at me and said, "I'm sorry, Ray. I've just had a lot on my mind that I just didn't know how to handle. Plus, I figured that it would be best if I just tried to settle it out by myself and not let you in on it. So I thought that if I acted angry, you wouldn't get involved." Normally, I wouldn't have. I calmed down and reverted the blade back into my arm as I released my grip on Nanya and lowered my left hand from her. I looked at Zaec, slightly upset and hurt at what I had done, then asked, "What's been troubling you, Nanya?" She sighed as she gently grabbed my coat's left arm with her right paw. Then she moved to sit down while pulling me down with her. She let go of my coat. She looked up at the eastern mountains and said, "I'm sorry, Ray. While you were in Wardrick's tomb, I headed back into the fields to take a nap to wait for you, knowing that you were going to be gone for a long time. But in just that one nap, my greatest question, like anybody else's, came to mind and gave me great fear." Nanya moved closer to me and placed her head on my left shoulder. She closed her eyes, then asked, "What becomes of us when we die? Do we somehow go to our dreams, or does an all-powerful person send us to a place that's most deserving of us?" I looked at Zaec, confused, and asked, "That's what's been bothering you? The thought of death?" Nanya just sat there in silence for a few seconds, then responded, "There's more to it than that. I had a dream. A dream where once I die, I go to a beautiful world, just like this one, and live there forever, peacefully." She rubbed her head up against me slightly for a few seconds, then continued, "You were there as well, Ray. You and I were living there so peacefully, as if nothing could tear us apart. It was beautiful, but something was wrong." "What happened?" Nanya opened her eyes to look down at the ground and said, "After a while, you started to hate me." She began crying as she gave little sniffs in between some of her sentences and continued, "I didn't understand why. Even other people were there, who seemed to act as if they were your friends, hated me. And somehow, I'm not sure if it was your wife or not, but from how this one woman acted, she was the worst of them all." A stream of tears started running down my arm from Nanya's eyes. She continued, "She was trying so hard to keep you away from me, saying awful things about me and pulling you away. I don't know what I did to cause so much anger. I don't know why she hated me so." With that, Nanya quickly grabbed my entire left arm with both of hers as she shut her eyes tight and yelled, "I'm so sorry, my lord. Please don't hate me. I'll do whatever you want, I swear. Just don't hate me." I turned to Zaec as I grabbed her left shoulder with my right hand and gently pulled her closer to hold her, while I quietly said, "I don't hate you, Nanya, and I never will. There's nothing to be upset about anyways. It was just a bad dream. A simple nightmare, that's all." It took Nanya a few minutes to calm down. Then she said, "It was more than a dream, Ray. That dream made me realize something that I wish I hadn't ever figured out. Something that now hurts me deep inside. And that horrible fact is I have no family or friends to turn to for help and support. Everyone that I knew from my clan left me and never came back. And even some of them, like my husband, were killed. I've been alone for nearly a decade now." "What about your friends here in the God Realm, John and Sam?" Nanya calmed down a little bit more and replied, "They're not my friends. They didn't even want to hang out with me since I was a mortal. All they cared about was relaxing and training with their masters or students. It's like I don't exist to any of them. The only reason I've been living here is because, like most of the people from my tribe, I ran away from my home to hide from your corrupted father. But even here, I can't escape my loss. My pain. After a few more minutes, Nanya completely calmed down as she opened her eyes slightly to look down at the ground again. I gently wiped her tears away with my right hand, then placed my hand on one of her paws that she still had wrapped around my left arm. "You okay now?" I asked. She just lightly nodded her head, then she gave one last sniff. After that, I said, "Alright then. Let's get to where you were taking me so we can both leave this dreadful place." Nanya's tail gave a quick wag, then it laid still as I said, "You can come live with me, hang out with all of my friends and family if you want. I'm sure they'd be more than happy and willing to be with you, especially knowing that you're an Abeki. They might even become your new best friends." Her tail gave another quick wag, and I said, "Just keep in mind that I will always be here for you when you need me, Nanya. You'll never have to be alone ever again." Nanya gave a light smile as her tail started to wag happily and contently, while she giggled slightly. Then she moved her head to look up at me and said, "You know, you could be my new best friend if you wanted." "Dirty," I quickly said as I smiled at her, making her laugh. I then motioned for us to stand and continued, "You'll have to consult with Serena on that one. Last time I tried to do anything that involved another woman, both Serena and the other woman flipped out on me." "Well, of course. You always let your wife handle the woman's situation, regardless of what it may be, because men don't know what to say or do when it comes to those things. You're all too stupid." I looked over at the eastern mountains, irritated, and quickly said, "Whatever." Nanya snickered as she released my arm, then grabbed my left hand with her right paw and pulled me to walk with her as she said, "Let's go. All we need to do now is cross through the valley in between the east side mountains to the hidden temple, and then we can go home." Halfway through the valley towards the temple, with Nanya walking at my left side, both Nanya's ears and mine began to twitch from hearing soft footsteps surrounding us. It sounded like wolves. After a few seconds, I grabbed Nanya's right upper arm with my left hand to pull her closer for safety. Yubeki knew what I was doing, while she quietly and angrily asked, "You can hear them too, can't you?" "Yeah." Once I said that, the footsteps went silent. I stopped walking and lightly pulled back Nanya to stop her as well, where shortly afterwards we heard a rough voice that said, "It's about time you two worthless mortals finally left our gracious land of the gods." Koroto, Nanya realized. Figures. He'd never been one to support mortals. A large pack of wolves of about 40 jumped out from the cliffs of the mountains, completely surrounding us from about 15 feet. Each wolf stood against us ready to strike, baring their fangs viciously, with their tails raised up slightly. However, Koro's tail was raised straight up, and he stood himself up in a royal posture, while he dared not show his fangs. Koro stood directly in front of Nanya's and my path, keeping his bright yellow eyes locked just on me with a fierce gaze. As the pack revealed themselves, Koro said, "Guess my students weren't silent enough to follow you. However, that doesn't mean they're not strong enough to kill you." "Leave us alone, Koro," Nanya said. "We're leaving, so call off your mutts." Insulted, Koro quickly changed his posture to an attack stance as he bent his ears back, looking over at Nanya while baring his fangs and snarling viciously. He then yelled, "How dare you, mortal!" The sky above us turned black with storm clouds as powerful lightning and roaring thunder clashed through it. Carl very slowly crept closer to Nanya and I as he continued, "I've been waiting for this day. A day where I not only kill the one intruder that plagued our land, but to prove once and for all by killing this Endelment that the wolf gods reign supreme." Out of line, one of Koro's students jumped at me from my right side to attack. However, I quickly moved to swing my right fist across my side and backhanded the wolf hard enough to break their skull, while also tossing them to slam into a boulder behind me. The wolf yelped in pain, then yelped one last time as it hit the boulder and crumbled it into a pile of rubble. I moved my hand to get my glasses, taking them off and putting them in my coat so they didn't get broken again, and lowered my hand as I said, "If it's a fight you want, Kuroto, then fight me yourself." Karo stopped and raised his head up at me, confused, and he laughed for a bit. Afterwards, he said, "Get real, kid. I am the one and only master of the wolf gods. I have lived far longer than you could ever hope to. Hell, I'm like Koju's father." He then became very angry as he continued, "And I have never lost a single fight in my life, especially not to a mortal." I let go of Nanye's arm and reached into my left pants pocket to pull out the caesthetic crystal that I had, then calmly said, "Guess that makes two of us." I tossed the crystal up into the air as I changed myself into a large wolf to match Koro's size, with pitch black fur that went glowing white at the last inch. When the crystal I threw started to fall from the sky, I responded to it by giving a loud howl up at it and caused the crystal to change. It formed into what resembled that of Galden, but it kept its crystal-like structure and stayed black. It landed just 2 inches above my body, where I used my energy to hold it up and to swing it around. As the crystal sword laid across my back, with the hilt aimed out from my right side near my head, Koro chuckled and said, "Really? You think you can fight at my level? Well then, let's just see if you've got what it takes to even give me a challenge." Koro pushed himself up to stand on his hind legs, and as he stood, he opened his mouth and charged a bright yellow blast of energy between his jaws. As he slammed his front paws back down, he shot the blast into the ground. Shortly afterwards, 2 beams of energy shot up from the ground behind him, revealing 2 thin, nearly 4 feet long, ninja-like swords that shined bright yellow. The 2 swords dazzled for a moment in the air as they moved across and placed themselves gently onto Koro's back. Then the wolf said, "I am the wolf god Kuroto Maru, master of silent slaughter. No one has been able to match my speed nor mimic the quiet sound I take in my movements. And with how the terrain is, I doubt you'll even realize I've struck you." "Man, and I thought humans were stupid," I said with a smirk. The rain started to shower down, quickly and completely drenching us. To me, the rain meant nothing more than that a fight was going to go down. And by the look of it, a good one. I loved the rain. It brought a quick and brief message of an oncoming fight, but it also brought another message. Something that was foul, that contaminated the area, needed to be washed away. This fight was mine. This concludes the reading of Chapter 30. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you like what you've seen and heard, there will be a link to my physical works in the description below. With that being said, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you again next week reading Chapter 31.